everyone, and welcome to an episode of Trident Talks. I'm Josh, one of the co-founders here at Trident, and today I am joined by Cooch, the Chief Operating Officer at ShadowDragon. Hey, mate.
Hey, thanks for having me.
No, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. So, Cooch, why don't you kind of give us an intro as to kind of who you are and what your role is at ShadowDragon?
Yeah, so Jonathan Cooch, I've been in cybersecurity and threat intelligence for, almost 30 years now, which makes me feel really, really old. And I'm currently the Chief Operating Officer at ShadowDragon.
Awesome. 30 years, eh? We'll roll back those years and we'll peel them back in a minute. So, do you actually, in fact, let's go into it. So, kind of start us, United States Air Force?
Yeah. So I started back in '95 in the U.S. Air Force. I had tours at the NSA and at the Air Force Information Warfare Center, which no longer exists. It's now it became part of the 24th, and now part of the 16th. I think the U.S. military loves to change their names every time they get a new general in charge. But yeah, I was doing offensive cyber back when nobody talked about it, and so. Got my start there supporting a lot of special operations and in different groups doing that. And then after about 6 years, I saw some opportunities in the private space. So I got out and joined a commercial company called Cytex, which did mostly government services kind of works. But the CEO was actually an MIT grad, and he loved having a group of people that, smart guys, just to kind of develop neat stuff that he might be able to show off to the government. And some of the special operations folks I was supporting showed up at my office literally on my first day of work and offered us a contract to continue doing work for them. So, as far as best days go, best first days go, that's at the top of my list. And built that out over a few years. Got up to a team of 25 at Cytex doing that, and then Cytex sold to Lockheed Martin, information technology at the time, for the services work, and my group. Was able to move and fall under a group at Lockheed called the Advanced Technology Labs, ATL. It's kind of their skunk works for IT groups. A bunch of great guys there. That group still exists. And so worked there for about a year and decided I wanted to move on and do something a little bit different. And so that's when I caught up with John Waters, who had bought out iDefense and turned it around and made it, out of their like fourth or fifth bankruptcy. And but he was able to make it a successful company and sold it to VeriSign. And I had kind of interacted with John a little bit over the years, and so reached out to him to just sort of say, I'm looking for something new. You just sold your company. Is there anything we can do? And he said, yeah, let's go try something. So started working with him, and we formed a company called Eyesight Partners in late 2006, but we kind of always claim early 2007 is when we really got running. And I did, worked with Eyesight Partners doing cyber threat, commercial and government cyber threat intelligence for 9 years until we sold to FireEye. At which point I felt, my journey there had kind of come to an end, and I loved working with customers. I've worked with a ton of security operations centers over the years, and I really just love working with them to improve their processes, improve their technology, and just kind of understand their problems a little bit better. And so after that, I joined a company called Threat Quotient, and because they were doing a threat intelligence platform at the time and getting into orchestration and a whole bunch of things that I thought, was really great with cyber threat intelligence and with the SOCs that I had worked with in the past. And I was at ThreatQ for about 5.5 years until this opportunity came along with ShadowDragon. And so I just couldn't say no.
That's one hell of a career. Still going nicely.
Yep. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. And like I said, maybe off air we'll take into detail about the eyesight days and how good those times were. But that must have been, like, in all seriousness, one of the earliest intel businesses, like cyber and commercial, that there were or there ever was.
I think, I mean, I truly think it was about the first. I mean, iDefense had done some threat intel, but it was more focused in on vulnerabilities and a lot of technical information. Whereas at iSight, we took the first look as far as like, I always described it as like, it's like the Wall Street Journal of what the bad guys are doing every day. We had a bunch of articles talking about what the bad guys were doing and how they were doing it. And so we would, also describe it as most security at that time was really focused inward. Security operations teams were taking a look at, what they could see on their network and what was hitting their network and trying to figure out, all right, how do we deal with it and how do we fix it? At iSight, we kind of flipped that model on its head to be able to say, hey, listen, let's start taking a look out there at all the people that are doing this, what they're doing, who they're targeting, and why they're targeting them, and be able to provide that information. Because now a group of financial services, a bank or something like that can take a look at it and be able to say, all right, beyond, all these ping scans or whatever else I'm seeing on my network, I now know that there are these groups out there that are trying to get into my customer data. They're breaking into databases. They're breaking into websites. They're, running ransomware scams. They're doing whatever they have to do. And we're able to provide that information to those organizations so that they could then go and improve their security.
So it was almost like it allowed them to be more proactive in building their cyber defense capability because they had the external threat knowledge, right? And the landscape beyond their own perimeter, which now is just obvious, right? But
and that was one of the big things, is moving from reactive to proactive. And I think the industry is still working on how exactly to do that. But it was we were probably the first. I like to claim that we were the first, whether that's true or not. And but then we'll
know because people will comment on it, be like, "No shit, we were the first."
Yeah, exactly. But they'll have But then you had CrowdStrike, you had Intel 471. You had a lot of very successful companies come on the heels of that to do very similar kind of things. Each of them has their own kind of niche in there, but they were all very successful because we were changing the market and how security was operating.
Yeah, almost changing the mindset, right, and the approach. Did you have kind of early adoption kind of pushback almost because you're trying to pave a new way for the way of operating and thinking?
Most definitely. And that actually applies to the company I'm in now with ShadowDragon. But at the time, in 2007, when we launched this, we had some early adopters come in that were mostly friends of John Waters, people that were willing to, he had done good things for them in the past with iDefense. And so they were willing to take a chance on them and on iSight at the time. And so we had some early adopters. Thankfully, they were big financials and bigger companies so that we were able to get our legs underneath us and also get some reputation in the industry. But it was probably about 2 years. It wasn't until 2009 or so until it started becoming more mainstream. We were creating the market at the time because SOCs just weren't using cyber threat intelligence. It didn't mean anything to them. The government and military understood what we were doing because they've been doing intel for decades and decades, hundreds of years, maybe even thousands. But they've been doing that for a while. But commercial industry had not.
Yeah, interesting. Who was the founding team at iSight then? So you had John, you had yourself.
Yep, myself, Mike Susong. A retired CIA agent, an Army Ranger, Matt Keene, and then who had worked with John at iDefense, as well as Sam Stover was an early one. And Sam and I had worked together at Cytex and Lockheed, and then he joined us at iSight when we first started up.
Awesome. Are you had Stu there as well, Solomon, right? But he joined later on, did he?
Yeah, Stu joined on a little bit later, but came in and kind of took the organization by storm. But also, he helped us set up, I think, a lot more formal processes. I mean, as with any startup, you're kind of making stuff up as you go along. Every organization's a little bit different, and so Stu was able to come in and work closely with myself and another friend of mine that I've worked with at many companies, Matt Hartley, and Stu, Matt, and I. Stu would always kind of call us on it. You're like, why are you doing it this way? We gotta professionalize this. And it's like, we don't want. We just seat of our pants.
Stop ruining it. Stop ruining it. Yeah,
exactly.
Because he's a lawyer by trade, right? I think.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. So he's the smart. Got his head switched on. Everyone else is just
he knows how to ruin all the fun. Yep.
Yeah, we'll tag him in this. Don't worry. We'll make sure he watches this.
Stu's a good friend, and he's actually the one who helped set me up at ShadowDragon. So
he's a dude.
I will owe him forever.
Yeah, I think that's through Spherica, isn't it? But he's a good dude.
Yeah.
And then okay, cool. So when the acquisition happened, did you not have an earnout, or were you not having to stay at FireEye for a period of time?
So yeah, no, I was part of the earnout because I had equity in the company, but I didn't have to actually work for the earnout. So it was a lot of my friends on the sales team that, as with most transactions, the sales team, the company overall had a sales goal that we needed to meet for the earnout. And actually, two of our lead sales guys, Paul and Scott, who were there that helped us achieve the earnout there. Are with me now. Yep. So we're bringing the band back together a little bit.
Yeah, good guys. I think you just need AJ Singh now, and you've got the trio.
So, tough to keep up with AJ all the time.
So then you joined Wayne at ThreatQ. How different was that? Because that's more platform focused, was it, than iSight?
Yeah. No, most definitely. It actually was an oddly easy transition for me because I was one of the first ones into the company where I actually had security operations and threat intelligence experience. A lot of the company was, people that obviously Wayne and Ryan had experience operating in a SOC. But other than that, most of the people they brought in, we had, a lot of developers and a few sales folks. But a lot of the team were really people that had experience in the security community, but more as a vendor developing capabilities for that. And so for me, it was great to come in because I was able to combine this knowledge of threat intelligence and how it's being used with how SOCs actually operate and what they're doing. And all my friends that were running SOCs at the time or part of SOCs that were, able to keep me up to date on kind of, all right, here's some ideas that we have, along with this new technology that we were trying to put into SOCs to help make sense. Because as I mentioned before, iSight may have been the first, but you very quickly had CrowdStrike and Intel 471 and Flashpoint and all these other companies popping up to provide threat intelligence. And SOCs were very quickly getting overwhelmed with data. And that's actually a problem I'm very familiar with, having worked at the NSA, because that's one of the problems the NSA has always had, regardless of the area, is you get so much data in, how do you filter through it to figure out what's really important and what's actionable? And that's kind of the goal we were taking on at Threat Quotient at the time was, all right, let's bring in all these various disparate data sources, align it with the various data sources internally. Let's hook up to the SIM, let's hook up to your vulnerability management, firewalls, anything we can get our hands on internally, combine all that information and be able to show it to the user as far as, all right, out of these, 50 million things you're learning about today, here's the 3 that you should really probably focus in on.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Okay, cool. Good development from iSight. And then bring us up to speed today. So ShadowDragon, you guys build OSINT tools for investigations, I saw, but how does that work?
So, and it's a little bit different take than I'm traditionally used to with OSINT. I go back to the old military days, and I go back to even my iSight days when most people, when they hear OSINT, if they've been around for a while, they're thinking of OSINT as like reading of the news, reading a newspaper and figuring out, what's going on. Or I remember, the old botnet tracking that they used to sell as OSINT. And we always equated OSINT with free. It was just kind of like, all right, I'm going out and collecting all this stuff and I'm offering it up for free. And then some people started making you pay for it and stuff like that. But ShadowDragon really took a unique approach on it to where we are dealing in, if you look in the official, U.S. government definition of OSINT, it's actually publicly available information. So, we're not doing any of the closed source kind of collection that we did at iSight. And it's not using nothing special. It's basically collecting information from public, websites, APIs, feeds, whatever you can get to that people can get to through their own browser. You don't need a special login. You don't need a special identity or anything else like that. And so part of it is, there's a new term coming out now. They're calling it SOCMINT, social media intelligence. Yep. So it's a little bit of that. Because we connect up to over 200 different sites that are out there. Some of it social media, some of it, the standard things like Reddit and 4chan and 8chan and things like that, deep and dark web. But it's all publicly available. So you can reach all of this information yourself through a web browser. And we just pull in that information, but we're not scraping or doing mass collection. That was one of the things that really attracted me to ShadowDragon is a lot of people, when they got into this space, started taking the approach of, let me just, boil the ocean. Let me grab all the information I can from everywhere, put it into a database, apply a bunch of AI to it, where all of a sudden this AI is going to tell you the magic answer of all your, solve all your world problems. Whereas at ShadowDragon, the approach they were taking and that they have taken since their inception is, listen, it's a very targeted investigative approach. I have a known person or entity or something that I need to look for or watch for. So I'm going to enter that into the system and see where that person exists. What's their footprint online? And so, it was a real big start with law enforcement and those kinds of investigative things. Now, with the war in Ukraine, I think has really made it explode with militaries and governments, because you see all the Russian troops going around using Telegram, broadcasting where they're at and what they're doing and everything else like that. And it's all in the open. There's no security, to it whatsoever. They're basically posting it to their, Facebook page for somebody my age, but, in their own generation's talk. And so we're just providing a platform that allows a user to go in and connect up to all these places, bring in all of the data so that they can do the analysis. And that was of big interest to me, just because number one is it's a small team. I'm a big startup person. I don't really like bigger companies. And so, it was a great opportunity for me to come in and join an already successful but smaller company, to help it go through that grow phase that I had been through, both at iSight and ShadowDragon, and to a large degree, or at ThreatQuotient, and then to a large degree also at Cytex when I was there, and grow this team, grow the company, grow the business, grow the capability. But it was also adjacent enough to work I've done in the past where I can be challenged. I still have stuff to learn. So it's been a great experience. I've been here for just over 2 years now, and we've grown the team to from I think I was employee like 12 or 13, and we've grown it to almost 60 people now. So it's been a great ride.
Yeah, that's very impressive. It's very impressive, particularly trying to build a business or building a business successfully around what you would consider free information. Right. That you have to be a very good platform to get people to pay for that. Clearly. I mean,
and it's automating a manual process. I mean, I knew this was going to be, massively successful when we ran a trial with one organization that had spent it was either 3 or 6 months on an investigation around this one person. And in 15 minutes of a demo, we were able to recreate their investigation.
Holy hell! There's the proof of value straight away, right? How's your POV?
Exactly. And and it's nothing special. It's just automating all of those manual processes and visually giving somebody a different way to look at the data. So we're just focusing in on that, what we do well. We're not trying to be more than we are. We're not trying to do anything special. I have my own history with artificial intelligence and everything else like that, where it just hasn't, quite worked out all that well for me. So I appreciated the approach that ShadowDragon took and takes today. And, I think we really can add value to the market. And this is also, it's a new space. It's interesting to kind of see how organizations are thinking about it. to where I feel a lot like the eyesight days when we first started in that 2007 to 2009 range, when it's like, all right, we've got something that can be really valuable here, but it's not something that, a SOC does not use social media intelligence right now. It's
right.
not part of their processes. So it's working with these groups to try and say, listen, this is going to be the next thing coming down the line, and this is why. This is how it can help you do your job better. And so I think, slowly but surely, we're getting on more and more commercial customers, and more commercial customers that are in the security space versus just physical security or risk, who are traditional users.
Yeah, it helps that you have hell of a team. I've seen some of the people like seriously impressive, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you're saying, like, we're not doing anything special, but it's like the basics done so well. Plus, we save you a ton of time. So a click of a button, we can create an investigation for you, persons of interest, etc. Interesting to see how the commercial SOC adopts that in terms of like investigating like inside a threat or investigating potential persons of interest externally that are on my network and where they come from, etc. And building that picture to then go to law enforcement or whatever they need to do with it.
Sometimes it's just staying ahead of the curve. I mean, what we're finding is that now security groups, traditionally risk or like we said, physical security will do this. But let's say you have a breach. A lot of times the risk group or the legal group has an obligation. You have to disclose when some of these breaches occurred, and you need to know, like what was breached, how much information was lost, when was it lost, when did we do this, when did we take all these actions. And right now, usually the way that works is, the legal group will then just be pinging the CISO or the SOC all the time about, I need this information, I need this information, I need this information. And what we're starting to see is where security groups want to get ahead of that. So they want these kind of tools to be able to know, all right, here are the questions I'm going to be asked as this breach investigation moves forward. So here's the information I need to collect. So they can be proactive at collecting that information or doing an internal investigation to be able to hand people the information they need, so that it's not always, it's once again a move from reactive to proactive. So that rather than just being, asked about it, they can now be ready with that information.
Yeah, that's awesome. Where just a final question. Appreciate your time. Where's the Intel market going? Where's the space going? Because everyone talks about the saturation, and it's full of people. Like the tip market has to kind of evolve and grow, and we need to move with the times. You're now more in the OSINT space and providing the platform for investigations. Like, is it still deep dark web, ransomware threat actor group kind of tracking, and is it still quarterly landscape reports sent to the audience?
Yeah, so I would say this is also the first company I've been to where we actually have 32 different documented use cases right now. More use cases than any other company I've ever been at for their product or service for whatever they're offering. So it's a little bit all over the place. I would say, people were talking about the commoditization of cyber threat intel, even when I was leaving Eyesight. They had been talking about that. And I think, a lot of different companies have kind of proven that wrong. At the same time, I do think everything's becoming more platform oriented, which was another reason why I chose to move to ThreatQ, because, I felt it was you got to take more like of a recorded future approach. They've been extremely successful because they had Intel, coming in, but they also had a platform behind it to help somebody manage it all. Not quite a tip, but more of an analyst platform, if you will. And so I think when you start, at the end of the day, it's all automation. You can put whatever marketing gobbledygook you want behind it, but it really is just automation. It's automation of the collection. It's assistance. I will say with the analysis, because I don't believe in full automation of analysis. You got to have somebody looking at it and thinking about it in the right way. But then it's automation of the deployment of that throughout your security environment. And so I think the future is really going to be, how can we best automate these things? But now expanding beyond security, tying in security better with the business processes of the organization. So tying in security more with risk, more with legal, more with physical security. I've been involved. I did some red team exercises when I was in the Air Force, breaking onto bases and that kind of stuff. And, I've always been amazed, and we even talked about it in the early eyesight days, at the weaknesses that are involved between physical security and cybersecurity. There's a seam there. During my offensive times as a hacker, you always look for those seams in the processes. It's not usually a technology problem. I'm not trying to get by the technology. All I need to figure out is, all right, here's where one person's job and here's where the other person's job starts. And I just need to find my way through the middle of that. And right now, I would say organizations as a whole have a huge issue with the fact that, their physical security, their risk, and their cybersecurity are not that well tied together. And so with some organizations, that's going to be the ultimate weakness until they can improve their people, process, and technology to be able to cover themselves as a business. Also keeping in mind that, on the commercial side, at least, commercial businesses there, the C-suite, their job is to retain current revenue and grow the revenue. They want to increase the value of the company. And so until security organizations can communicate that effectively, what they're doing is either helping retain revenue or grow revenue, through this integration throughout the organization, I think it'll always be kind of a little bit piecemeal and put off to the side.
Amazing. I appreciate your insight. Loads and loads of takeaways. A very impressive career, and we've definitely taken up too much of your time. So I appreciate it, Coach.
Thank you, Josh.
Been a
appreciate
pleasure.
it.